Welcome back to the Hishaku Hideout, a weekly podcast where we talk about the latest chapter and everything Kagurabachi. I'm here with Dice.
Yo, yo.
Today we're talking about chapter 79, and as we start where we left off from last chapter, we see the goat Hakuri back, looks anxious to get started, figuring out his role, and we finally get an answer as to the storehouse, and if they're both limited, what exactly does that mean in terms of using the storehouse, you think?
Well, I do like, or I don't know if I like this, right? Like is not probably the word I should be using, but it is definitely interesting how the Kamunabi are being pretty much straight up with him. Like, yeah, we don't know exactly how bad this is, but I guess we're about to find out. In terms of like where his abilities are at, right? They call it the test run or whatever. We were talking about this right before we started recording. I didn't really bring this up, but we were talking about how Kyora and how he was manipulated by the Hishaku, right? Essentially, or just being used overall. It is kind of I'm not sure if intentional parallel from Hokuzono's part, but the Kamunabi, like, it's very clear that they are only using Hakuri here. And I'm not sure if, it's the framing or if I'm just misinterpreting it, but we know that they're only, allies because of circumstance, right? We've talked about this. So the whole idea of them not knowing where Hakuri's at, and they're just saying, screw it. This is the guy we're going to use to make sure we're able to make sure the Magatsumi's safe. It's pretty noteworthy, not a surprise, of course, but definitely kind of just worth bringing it up, I thought.
I do like this dude Kudo. I kind of like his I guess demeanor in a sense. Hakuri's just getting up. He's most likely anxious. Chihiro's not around. He's technically around strangers. There's an Hishaku invasion. They're only temporary allies against the Hishaku, but I do like the fact that he does acknowledge what kind of workload that Hakuri has had to deal with since being included into the story. One thing that I just thought was weird is bro, if you want to check how the storehouse is operating, go bring the pliers back out, or go transport a pencil into the storehouse. You know what I mean? Do a test run with that, not with the Magatsumi. What happens if the swords are just in Hakuri's storehouse and he loses access to it? Because he doesn't have an emergency door.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so it's crazy that the Kamunabi would be willing to take that risk, right? It's almost like they might have a plan or that, or they're just that desperate. There's no time to waste. That would be my only argument as to why they can't real quick just teleport a pencil right now. They are once again just being invaded, so okay, that kind of makes sense.
I would teleport Kudo's ass in there. I'd be like, you tell me how the storehouse looks, motherfucker. We about to find out.
Exactly. And the whole situation is just pretty funny, but I'm digging it, man. I'm it's not an issue. That's not where I'm coming from. It's just seeing what seeds kind of Hokuzono's planning here, right? Because yeah, it was also funny to see Hakuri just ready to go, and then they're like, "Yep, you're gonna be teleporting the Shinichi," and he's like, "Whoa," his reaction is yeah, he was ready to go.
Yeah, the last time you saw it, this is the thing that tainted your father. By the way.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Chihiro and Hakuri, they're the homies. That's the duo. You know what I mean? It's not Kamunabi and Hakuri. I don't like that vibe too much. I don't want him to get too close to this dude Kudo. I mean, obviously I don't think they're actually gonna have a relationship or anything like that. I don't think they're gonna get to the Magatsumi and it's just gonna be an easy go. Yura or someone might be chilling there waiting for him. It could go a bunch of different ways. That's one thing that I do like about Hokuzono. I've mentioned this before. We talked about it. I think his greatest asset is his ability to keep us engaged on the week-to-week read. So I'm interested to see where he goes exactly with Hakuri, because Hakuri has some of the best panels in the series. I was reading Rakuzaichi from chapter 35 to 44, and Hakuri is just raw in all those panels. So I do like he's back in the story, and it's nice.
Yeah, and he adds something to the story. You know, like he's I think the reason why he's a fan favorite is because he's not empty like as a character, you know. He brings something to the table in his interactions with, you know, these other characters, especially like you said, Chihiro. Like people love that duo, and rightfully so. So I agree with you. I'm not a fan as much of a fan of the Kamunabi Hakuri duo. So we'll see, you know, where we go from here, like you said.
I'm just gonna play devil's advocate here. What if that Kamunabi, like they're not really that bad? You know, what if they're just like a government like entity? Any like organization that oversees like a region, it can be looked at as like tainted and be problematic. Now, I'm not saying the Kamunabi's perfect. They're just a normal like government, you know, where no one trusts their government. There's always some sus things going on, and the possibility that the big issue like regarding everything with the war was just the sword master, and now it's just more like the traitor. You know, it's like aside from those two, what if the Kamunabi? I mean, you know, we do have like how they handle certain things, like they let the mafia, like the little mafia smaller guys kind of just control that one little town. You know, like they just let them like run rampant basically. But what if they're not that bad, Dice?
I don't know, man. I think you're buying into that propaganda. I think that Kamunabi propaganda is doing miracles.
I'm brainwashed.
Yeah, and it's not Hakuri, it's you. No, man. I think they're clearly meant to be kind of this, you know, obscure organization, which like I don't know, right? I'm not sure I'm there with you, but they're definitely not meant to be all bad, right? I think this isn't that type of story where, you know, it's that clear where like these are the good guys and those are the bad guys. I think the only good guys that we know for sure are good guys are our main cast, right? Chihiro, Hakuri, Shiba. And so when it comes to like the Kamunabi and the Hishaku, I think it's a couple of shades of gray, right? It's a couple of reveals that we're probably still waiting for. That's gonna tell us who's truly the worst among those. Though right now it would have to be the Hishaku, right? They're the quote unquote terrorists, or not even quote unquote, right? We're seeing them going on for with a full on assault. Hey, it might be that Hishaku propaganda working on me. Hishaku ain't that bad.
This is the Hishaku Hideout.
Exactly.
You know, like you bring a good point where it's kind of like I think the position they hold, like it does lend itself to noble people of noble and righteous like beliefs to join them for like the good cause, which I think that could be Azami and Hiyuki. You know, people that they think that they can only influence change or like protect people through the Kamunabi. You know, like you mentioned like how Azami's kind of technically on a leash. You know, it's not, he can't just roam like off panel like Shiba does, you know, like a professional. But I hope Hiyuki and Azami are like the morally like conscious, like the good characters. You know, you want to like have them stand for something that's righteous, but the organization that they're in just has like, you know, a shadow over it.
Yeah, I think that's why Hiyuki's one of those characters where most people want to see more of, because I think a lot of people are looking forward to whether she might turn on the Kamunabi because of the very same reason that we're talking about, because they're an organization that clearly mostly cares about themselves. I mean, yeah, they do prioritize like the safety of the citizens that they're, you know, tasked to protect. But I don't know. It's we know for a fact, right, that they have skeletons in their closet. So do they have more that we don't know about? And even then, like I brought up with Hakuri earlier, their methods are questionable at least, you know, like, so I don't know, more to come, right? But with Azami, we know he's been cold for a minute. Colonel at 18. Sheesh.
and we do get the Kamunabis, like the name that they were before they became the actual Kamunabi, which was the Counter-Sorcery Army. So it's just an organization that basically changed names essentially, but we also know that they picked up the Masumi during the war as well. I wonder how deep of like lore we're gonna get on the Kamunabi predating the Seitei War.
Yeah, so one of the things that I really appreciate from the way Hokazono crafts this world within this story is like the parallels to real life. So when, that's what you brought up regarding what the Kamunabi was before the war, I'm sure this is no secret to a lot of people, right? But it's a clear parallel of what happens in real life. Like the example that kind of comes to my mind is pretty much like the CIA before being the CIA was the CIG, I believe, and they were an organization that only went active during periods of war, right? So I do like kind of the way Hokazono manages to blend real life with fiction, right? Or at least kind of draws inspiration from the way things work in real life. And I think that really adds to the story. It's a big reason why I enjoy it and why a lot of it is really believable within the parameters of fiction, right?
Yeah, it gives it like it gives the story like substance, like it helps the immersion when you make connections to real life, like say art imitates life.
Yeah.
I just don't know, like Hokusono is kind of a blank canvas in terms of like at a certain point JJK, I could tell you if Gege was going to go deep on a character or not, you know what I mean? Or if it's like surface level or this is all we're going to get. And with Hokazono, I just, don't know exactly how much he's going to like reveal for the Kamunabi, Hishaku. It could just be more straightforward than we think. And I think that's why it's always like important to like temper expectations. Like, you mentioned that a good bit last week. And, I think with our hot take last week on the chapter, I've kind of eased up on it a bit, but I still, keep my stance. But, we can kind of progress through this chapter a little bit faster. One thing I got to say, this Aladdin motherfucker with his, being able to sense threat levels, I need that motherfucker for home security. That dude, I don't trust him, like, especially with that code mouse. I'm like, oh, he's the rat.
We talked a bit about that last episode. He'd be like the perfect candidate to be the rat or at least an accomplice to the traitor or whatever. I thought the whole code mouse thing was really interesting. Not that there's much to it, but just the fact that they can immediately detect whether they have enough to take on the incoming assault.
Y'all don't want the smoke. Mouse, y'all don't want the smoke. It's like elephant is like a weak person. It's like the bigger the animal, the weaker they are.
You think cat is like when the enemies is fodder, like they're the cats when the mouse is walking in? I don't know.
We know there's 7 invaders. Now we thought they were all 7 Hishaku members, but we see there are 2 of them actually being non-Hishaku. So it's going to be, I'm wondering exactly who the other like 4 are, because we get the samurai dude who is a Hishaku member, and then these 2 ugly guys, which you could look at them and that they're not going to make a chapter. Look at these 2 guys.
That's a good one. I didn't think about that, but that's a good one. For a second, I thought they were going to pop off. But Hokazono's a genius at just giving these fodder dudes like crazy designs to just hype up some other dude that we already know,
Yeah, like he's like, we're gonna hype this guy up just so it could be a springboard for the goat, or
which is good to see. It works, right?
I feel like Hokazono's way to give us like supplemental information is always through side characters that don't play a role in the story essentially, but their words play into like the lore a bit. Like this random guy with his nephew was one of the part of the 11 that got slaughtered by the 2 brothers. He's the one who tells us about like the old ranking system, the original name. Like that's information that we have been wondering about in a sense. Like We knew the Kamunabi became the Kamunabi during the war, but what about beforehand? So we know that that was an entity that, you know, fought against sorcery for the well-being of the nation, you know, in quotations. I can't even think of an example exactly, but
No, I can. You mentioned it, and I just thought of like three. So, you know, let's give Hokazono his flowers for a moment, because that is true. You know, we're just seeing it with this one character that you're bringing up, who lost his whose nephew was among the 11 Kamunabi slaughtered by these two fodder brothers. A similar thing we saw during the Rakuzaichi arc, in that one girl that was imprisoned and kind of manipulated Hakuri into taking her own life. You know, there was a lot there, right? But I thought that really fleshed out how the Sazanami worked in regards to like how they handled the whole Rakuzaichi. We saw something similar, I think, in that same arc with the young boy who lost his sister. We saw a couple of chapters ago the dude
Samura, what, the guy with the fire, Suzaku.
Yeah, the dude, the painter. I was just about to bring it up. So you're right. I actually hadn't thought of that until you brought it up. So yeah, no, he deserves his flowers for that for sure, because it adds something. All those moments have added to the story being told at the moment.
The more substance and you kind of fill the world out as you build, like do things like Hokazono is, it rounds everything off very nicely to where there's no like just like jagged like stops where it's just like an abrupt like, you know, or like your experience of it because you feel like there's something lacking. You know, like things like this help fill that void a bit. And, you know, like I'm okay with it coming from some guy that we'll probably never see again. You know what I mean? I'm fine with that. But from there we see, you know, the Hishaku members, they're questioning like, oh, this is a trap. Like, who cares? Let's keep going. And then they enter in the arena where Azami, no glove, no love, gets to work.
That's funny. That sounds cold, not gonna lie. Yeah, I mean, Azami's cold, right? He doesn't waste any time. Like most cold characters in the story.
No time. What'd you say about him walking out? He had
walkout music, bro.
So fire, bro. They got speakers, but they got drums.
It's a whole
with speakers.
ceremony, bro.
Like, them dudes must clock in for work and they just sit on that ledge waiting for people to come in so they could start riffing.
Seeing blood, bro. Like, fucking Azami's walking out like, you know, fucking to a UFC cage or whatever. Fucking to the octagon, you know?
And he's by himself, serious. I love that panel of him, like, Soshiro Azami, Executioner. And a Counter-Sorcery Land Force.
The Executioner.
See, in this, they say, in the Counter-Sorcery Land Forces, he rose to the rank of Colonel at the tender age of 18.
Light work.
He's locked in, just like, you know, like the Executioner was livid. He has no, like, he pays no mind to these two guys. You know, it's like he's just he eclipses them. His eyes are on the samurai guy the whole time.
Yeah, it only like just now hit me how much his demeanor is similar to Chihiro's in combat, in terms of like their approach to combat, even like their faces, like the looks. Like we see a couple of panels afterwards, like the look in Azami's eyes, and just the cold, just, you know, cold-blooded, stone-faced killer.
Yeah, unattached from like anything but the kill.
Yes, it is fun to see that. Not sure if that's intentional or whatever, but I do like that.
This is like the signifier that we're about to start getting it back in blood. The people who killed Kunishige, we know that like the three that were there were like the top, like the powerful ones of the Hishaku. They did it in 10 seconds, which that does help Shiba's case a bit, by the way, because 10 seconds is that's pretty quick to react in a situation. But they have this like small panel of like him breaking the chains. We're about to like really break free of attachment of getting the revenge. I feel like Azami's like starting it.
No, but I see what you're saying, and I think I'd love that. You know, I'd love for it to be that kind of like a flipping of the switch, you know, because you know, the panel afterwards kind of, you know, to your credit, pretty much is that he literally just plunges his fist straight into the dude's face and
Bro,
completely
disintegrates his
you
head.
he decapitates both of them
God.
with just a punch. It looks like
He's doing it in loafers too.
cold, bro. I love Azami, bro.
Same.
It was so fun to see back.
I'm wondering if like the gloves, like if there's something with the gloves specifically, like it's
Crazy.
maybe like a almost like suppresses something in him, or because it says his thing is like just pure power essentially. He's just gonna break through like tricks. They just can't. His sheer power just like breaks through all that. But now he's got a Hishaku member, which if he is one of the elite, this might be the sorcerer versus sorcerer fight we've been wanting. But unfortunately, Azami isn't like your run of the mill sorcerer.
Wait, what are you trying to say though?
Looking forward to like their matchup. An elite sorcerer versus an elite sorcerer, which we're about to get, hopefully. But Azami doesn't like use sorcery like other people. He's just more of a brawler.
Well, let me ask you this. What are the chances Samurai Shaku, let's call him, what are the chances he gets washed?
I think it's possible. And the way Hokuzono's been going, he's not afraid to make the Hishaku look silly.
Not at all, right?
Hirohiko's been crying. This dude just splattered two guys' heads.
Well, thankfully they ain't Hishaku, so it doesn't, technically.
The rule of the threat elimination grounds is that threats die here. This he's dressed as like a samurai, like a Ronin, but he doesn't have a blade on him from the looks of it. I don't think I've seen it on his person.
Don't look like it, true.
His sorcery might be like a spirit blade or something like that.
Yeah, or he'll teleport it or whatever. Who knows? I mean, the fact that he has like a crazy mustache, or like at least a standout mustache, just makes me.
That boy's like, aha, it's me, Mario.
It makes me think he's gonna die, like disrespectfully, bro. Like, once again, look at the general manager from the hotel. Like, I don't know. I think Hokuzono has a thing for just completely embarrassing these mustache dudes.
So no free mustache rides.
Yeah.
We don't really get to see his eyes. Wouldn't it be crazy if like he has like Yura eyes?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
And like I forget which chapter it is, but there's a chapter right after the Rakuzaichi arc where Yura, says it's time for the next move or whatever, and the samurai armor is in that hallway.
Well, I did kind of check, and it's not the same one though. I looked at that. Yeah, it's not the same one. Which could be just an inconsistency. Could be. Not that it matters, right? But I'm just.
Azami has been cleared for a couple, a chapter or two now, and I'm ready to see Azami get to work. I want to see him struggle a bit and see like his like demeanor. Like I want to see his demeanor when he's pressed. Like, yeah, you are farming right now, bro. We get it, but what happens when you're pressed?
Yeah, I love to see him have like a Hiyuki moment. Like that was one of my favorite moments of her as a character, just like the unhinged, it's tapping into like kind of like that unhinged mentality and the in the midst of combat, because it takes you there. Each character is different, right? But I do agree. I'd love to see him just now that he has the gloves off, right? I would love to see him just
no glove, no love.
Yeah, I would love to see him show absolutely no love to the samurai looking dude. No.
Yo, so Hiyuki is in universe stated as Kamunabi's strongest fighter, and we know that's because of Flamebone, because it's like the closest thing to an enchanted blade, and it just seems like we know in this world enchanted blades are above sorcery, like are above sorcerers, just because of their their power and like how much spirit energy that like it manifests. I would like to start seeing like the disparity between the powers of like Azami and Hiyuki, you know what I mean? I would like that doesn't really matter in the story necessarily. It's more of like not even power scale, but just in general, like I would like to get a feel for like what the difference of sorcery versus like Flamebone, and you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I think we both have like a similar approach when it comes to this, because neither of us are really into power scaling like that. It's more of like, what does, in this case, like the scaling of the powers. What does it mean for the story, right? Like, how does that reflect in the narrative? What does that mean in regards to when certain players are against other players at X place or whatever, like we're seeing now? It raises the stakes for the readers, I mean, because we don't know, right? Like, for the most part, we know that a lot of these guys are kind of relative to each other, but I think for us, it only enhances the experience for now, not having that certainty of like who can take on who for sure, you know?
In universe, knowing like what pieces are in play at different times will give us like, you know, expectations, worries. Like if we know someone, like, oh man, we would feel a lot better if Hiyuki was here instead of Azami. We don't know how close it is to finishing. Like Hogazono could really like finish this thing in 50 chapters if he wanted to. I don't think that's the case. We're still pretty early in the story, still in the terms of like seeing the powers at play and, you know, how strong or how weak different characters are.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. We've talked about this before. We're only kind of like now starting to get into the nitty gritty of the enchanted blades. And even now it seems like we're about to get our first sorcerer on sorcerer fight, you know, like strictly sorcery. So, and I know we've seen a little bit of that previously, right? But it just in terms of like a one-on-one at this level, right? Because kind of circling back to the top 3 Hishaku, from what we've been told, the ones who went at Kunishige, like you said, it seems like this is going to be the first domino to fall, right? So yeah, it does seem like the story's now chugging along and entering a certain period where I'm not sure what we can expect from the pacing itself, but like, it just like I said, dominoes are almost definitely going to start to fall, and I think it's starting with this guy, almost certainly, right? And once again, as I say that, I think like expectations, but like, yeah, I don't mean it from like, oh, this has to happen, right? It's just like, what am I reading here? What, you know, trying to keep my finger on the pulse type of thing, right? Right now I'm like, I really enjoyed this chapter, really, like I really did, more than I thought I would, because to me it really kind of sets the it really sets a certain mood right off the beginning, right? Like the Kamunabi headquarters. Yeah, the tone, that's the word. Appreciate it. Like it sets the tone like perfectly right off the start, and the whole chapter it maintains that tone, you know, even bringing Azami into the fold. So besides this guy, which we've now seen his face for the first time, I believe female Shaku, the female that was present at Kunishige's assassination.
Hishaku.
She's the only one who Hishaku. Yeah, I like that. We saw her silhouette, but I believe she's the only one whose now face we haven't seen. Right? And maybe it's because it's the same Kamunabi female. I know some people have like their theories there. But regardless, I just wanted to bring that up because this guy just has a face. We'll see for how long he's gonna have it, or whether Azami's gonna give him the same treatment. But yeah, I'm excited to see like if I'm kind of accurate on like the story kind of entering a new kind of I don't know if era, period, or whatever we want to, just whatever you want to call it, right? I do like where the story's kind of heading in regards to the current players.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, the tone is definitely. I mean, this dude just splat 2 heads. You know, like, like we've seen people die, but this dude literally with his bare hands splatted 2 heads. Like, it's crazy. And it's Azami. He doesn't really give off like that cold, like detached killer feeling, but that's what it takes to go up against the Hishaku. And you know, to your point, like the tone is set. And I mean, the chapter ends with Kudo and Hakuri looking like a buddy cop duo. And it just seems like Hakuri is just anxious. Like he's just raring to go.
Yeah. I have a feeling. Yeah, I have a feeling he's going to get done dirty, man. Because he's so naive and he's so like jittery. Like we discussed, like he's just so up and ready to go. And I have a feeling like the Kamunabi they're going to exploit him one way or another. I think, right? I'm not expecting it or anything. I just have that kind of gut feeling.
He's the one that would be easiest to do so. Because it's like, oh, this is for Chihiro's sake. You know, like they could just play into like, oh,
Exactly. I think that's it.
this is how we're going to help Chihiro. And if he's young and naive and he just wants to help Chihiro, you know, it's easy to like kind of take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's I think it's that.
Yeah, all in all, this was a solid chapter. It's a bit different than, you know, what we've been getting in a sense. But I think the cutaway from Samura and Chihiro, I would like to see where that goes. But I kind of expected it to shift, you know, so that doesn't surprise me. I enjoyed it. You know, that'll basically do it for us, though. Let us know in the comments, you know, how you felt about the chapter, any theories, or, you know, what you think. Dice, any closing statements?
Yeah, no, just in regards to the chapter itself, I do like that we're cutting away from Chihiro. I know you and I, we had seems like controversial, unpopular opinions in regards to last chapter. I think we're both in like a wait and see approach. But so I do like that we're kind of cutting away from that. And I do wonder how we're going to return to that and whether what we see here changes anything. Right. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I think I enjoyed this chapter a little bit more than you did from what I can take away. But hey, that's part of it, right? And all in all, I think we're both really excited to see where we go from here. So
all right, y'all have a good day. Till next time. Peace.
Peace.